Transform Energy is a for-profit company incorporated in the United States, designed to address extreme poverty and climate change simultaneously. Coal is the biggest contributor to carbon emissions, both in the West and in developing countries. And coal also represents a major source of electricity. Companies use coal to boil water, to produce steam, to turn a wheel to produce electricity. And this method of producing electricity is responsible for 70% of electricity produced in India today. The problem is that coal is also the single biggest contributor to carbon emissions and climate change, as well as pollution from releasing products incorporated in coal, like arsenic and sulfur. Mother Nature takes plants and animals that have pulled carbon out of the atmosphere as they grow. And in the production of coal, those plants and animals that were living 100 million to 300 million years ago ended up underground and under pressure, were converted to coal, and represented Mother Nature's way of sequestering carbon underground for 100 to 300 million years. When we mine coal and burn it, we release that carbon into the atmosphere again, and the arsenic, sulfur, and other pollutants along with it. A way to substitute for coal with a much lower impact on carbon and climate change is to produce a coal substitute from invasive hardwoods like mesquite. In fact, we have collaborated with a group of volunteers who are engineers from Ball Aerospace, and they have designed a process that can be carried out at the village to produce a substitute for coal in 100,000 village kilns, each kiln capable of producing 7 tons a day of coal substitute. The coal substitute comes from an invasive hardwood, and in this case we have used mesquite, which is abundantly distributed in dry areas. Mesquite as a plant from a seedling can put down a taproot 165 feet long in 3 years. And so it is especially competitive in very dry areas because that taproot gains access to whatever moisture is available. In the state of Gujarat, India, as an example, mesquite represents fully 50% of forest cover. We have taken mesquite firewood. It's a product that's common in states like Gujarat, and run it through a chipper. We then put those chips of mesquite into a rotating 55-gallon drum encased in an insulated type of furnace. With that rotating drum, by heating it to 280 degrees indirectly in the absence of oxygen, we have produced chips that look like coal and burn like coal. They have a thermal density of something like 4.6 to 5.4 kilocalories per kilo, which makes it competitive with coal. We believe that by taking what we have learned with the space engineers from Ball, with one rotating barrel, the next step is to build a 12-barrel kiln capable of producing 7 tons a day of coal substitute from 10 tons a day of mesquite firewood that as input. It will cost between $200,000 and $500,000 to build and fully test and adapt this model. And the next step is to beta test that in India. We will then build 3 village kilns, which will operate to each produce 7 tons a day of torrefied mesquite. Torrefaction has been thoroughly studied scientifically, and it works. But what hasn't been done is to design a practical kiln operation that can be operated by enterprises in villages in countries like India to produce the coal substitute. Since the current market price of torrefied mesquite in India is somewhere between $100 and $180 a ton, and we can purchase mesquite dried firewood for $30 or $40 a ton, it should become a profitable commercial enterprise which replaces coal in India and in other countries in the world. And that is the future goal of Transform Energy.